This is my true story. I am Miss Ruthie Bell, 70 years old. And if you enjoy powerful stories like this, don't forget to subscribe for more. Because what I'm about to share is a lesson in dignity, deception, and the quiet power of a mother who refuses to be underestimated. The first time I met my daughter-in-law's family, I wore my plainest dress, the one with the faded hem and the tiny patch on the sleeve, and I left my pearls in the drawer. I wanted them to see me as simple, harmless, maybe even a little naive. The dinner was at their grand house in the city. All marble floors and gold-framed mirrors, the kind of place where every sound echoes and every smile feels rehearsed. My son Malcolm was nervous, fussing over my hair and reminding me to just be myself. But I could see the worry in his eyes. Vanessa, his new wife, greeted me with a tight hug and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Her mother, Mrs. Whitaker, looked me up and down, her lips pursed in polite disapproval, while her father, Mr. Whitaker, shook my hand with a grip that said, "You don't belong here." I smiled, soft and sweet, and let them believe what they wanted. As we sat down to dinner, the conversation turned quickly to money, vacations in Europe, private schools, investments, and the burden of caring for aging parents. I listened, nodding, asking gentle questions that made them laugh at my country ways. Vanessa's mother leaned over and whispered, "Don't worry, Ruthie, we'll make sure Malcolm is taken care of. He's family now." I thanked her, my voice warm, but inside I was watching every move, every glance, every word. When dessert was served, Vanessa's brother excused himself, slipping away to make a phone call. I noticed the way he glanced at the hallway safe, the way Mrs. Whitaker typed in the code without a second thought. I memorized the numbers, tucking them away for later. As the evening wore on, Mrs. Whitaker accidentally spilled wine on my dress, then handed me an old apron with a smirk. The family laughed and I laughed with them, playing the part of the grateful, clueless mother. But when I excused myself to the guest room, I found the safe unlocked, a stack of unpaid bills and foreclosure notices inside. My heart pounded, but I kept my face calm as I returned to the table. Vanessa's father was boasting about the prenup, about making sure Malcolm knows his place. I smiled, my eyes glinting with a secret. Before I left, I slipped a small envelope into my purse, the letter from my late husband's lawyer, the one I'd received just before the wedding. As Malcolm drove me home, he apologized for his in-laws' behavior, his voice heavy with shame. "Mama, I'm sorry. I just want everyone to get along." I squeezed his hand, my voice gentle. "Don't you worry, baby. Sometimes the best way to see the truth is to let people show you who they really are." That night I sat at my kitchen table, reading the letter again, my mind racing with everything I'd seen and heard. I knew then that Vanessa's family was hiding something big, and that my son was in more danger than he realized. But I also knew that I had a plan, and that the next time I saw the Whitakers, they would learn just how dangerous it is to underestimate a mother who's been poor, patient, and quietly watching all her life. The next morning, I woke before the sun, the city's noise still a distant hum, and sat at my kitchen table with a cup of chicory coffee, the letter from my late husband's lawyer spread out before me. The words were clear and careful, written years ago but meant for this very moment. "Ruthie, if you're reading this, it means Malcolm is about to start a new chapter. Remember, the trust one set up for him is ironclad. No one, not even a wife or her family, can touch it without your approval. If you ever feel something's wrong, call Mr. Carter. He knows what to do." I traced my finger over Charles's signature, feeling his presence steady me. I thought about the Whitakers' laughter, the way they'd looked at me like I was a stray dog at their table, and I let the memory harden into resolve. I called Mr. Carter as soon as his office opened, my voice low and steady. "Mr. Carter, it's Ruthie Bell. I need to talk about the trust. I think Malcolm's in trouble." He listened, asked a few sharp questions, and promised to look into the Whitakers' finances. "You did the right thing, Miss Ruthie. I'll be in touch soon." I hung up, my heart pounding, and set about my day, but my mind kept drifting back to the safe, The bills, the way Vanessa's brother had looked over his shoulder before making that call. That afternoon Malcolm stopped by, his face drawn and tired. "Mama, Vanessa's family wants us to come over again this weekend. They said they want to talk about family business." I could hear the worry in his voice, the way he still wanted to believe the best in people. "You trust me, don't you, Malcolm?" I asked, looking him in the eye. He nodded, his shoulders slumping. "Of course, Mama. You're the only one who's ever been straight with me." I smiled, brushing his cheek. "Then let me handle this. Just play along for now. Don't sign anything, don't agree to anything. And if they ask you about your inheritance, tell them you don't know the details." He looked confused but nodded, relief flickering in his eyes. That evening I baked a batch of sweet potato pies, the scent filling my little house, and thought about all the times I'd been underestimated. All the times I'd let people think I was less than I was. I remembered Charles's words. "Sometimes, Ruthie, the best way to win is to let them think you've already lost." The next day Mr. Carter called back, his voice urgent. "Miss Ruthie, you were right to be suspicious. The Whitakers are in deep debt. Their house is mortgaged to the hilt, and they've been trying to get access to Malcolm's trust through Vanessa. There's also evidence they tried to bribe a notary to push through a fake prenup." My blood ran cold, but I kept my voice calm. "Thank you, Mr. Carter. What do we do now?" He explained the steps. "Gather more evidence, keep playing the part, and wait for the right moment to expose them. And Ruthie, don't let them see you coming." I promised I wouldn't. That night I sat by the window watching the city lights flicker, and wrote a letter to Malcolm, telling him everything I'd learned, everything his daddy had done to protect him. I sealed it in an envelope, tucking it into my purse next to the lawyer's letter. I knew the next family dinner would be a turning point, and I was ready. As I drifted off to sleep, I whispered a prayer for strength, for wisdom, and for the courage to do what needed to be done. The Whitakers thought they were dealing with a poor, naive mother, but they were about to learn that I was so much more, and that the quietest woman in the room is often the one holding all the cards. The weekend came faster than I expected, and as Malcolm drove us back to the Whitakers' house, I could feel the tension in his hands on the steering wheel. He tried to make small talk, but his mind was elsewhere, and I let the silence settle between us, knowing he needed time to process everything. When we arrived, Vanessa greeted us at the door, her smile a little too bright, her eyes darting nervously to her parents. Mrs. Whitaker wore a silk scarf and pearls, but I could see the worry etched in the lines around her mouth. Mr. Whitaker ushered us into the living room, where a stack of papers sat on the coffee table, and Vanessa's brother hovered in the corner, pretending to scroll through his phone. "We're so glad you could join us again, Ruthie," Mrs. Whitaker said, her voice syrupy sweet. "We thought it would be nice to talk about the future, about how we can all support Malcolm and Vanessa as they start their life together." I smiled, folding my hands in my lap. "That's mighty thoughtful of you. Family's important." Mr. Whitaker cleared his throat, sliding the stack of papers toward Malcolm. "We've drawn up a few documents, just some things to make sure everyone's protected. You know, in case anything happens." Malcolm glanced at me, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. I leaned forward, my voice soft. "What kind of documents?" Mrs. Whitaker jumped in, her tone brisk. "Just a little agreement about the trust. We thought it would be best if Vanessa's father managed it, since he has experience with investments." I let out a gentle laugh, shaking my head. "Oh, I wouldn't know anything about trusts or investments. I just know what Charles left for Malcolm, and that he wanted it to be safe." Vanessa's brother shifted, glancing at his mother, and I caught the flash of panic in his eyes. "Mama, maybe we should." Mrs. Whitaker cut him off with a glare. "It's all very standard, Ruthie. You just need to sign here as a witness." I took the papers, flipping through them slowly, my heart pounding as I recognized the forged signatures, the legal jargon twisted to give the Whitakers control over Malcolm's inheritance. I looked up, my face calm. I'm afraid I can't sign anything today. I left my reading glasses at home, and I never sign what I can't read. Mr. Whitaker's jaw tightened, but he forced a smile. Of course, Ruthie. We can wait. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of forced conversation and tense smiles. Vanessa tried to pull Malcolm aside, whispering urgently, but he shook his head, staying close to me. As we prepared to leave, Mrs. Whitaker pressed a small envelope into my hand. Just a little something for you, Ruthie. A thank you for being so understanding. I opened it in the car, finding a crisp $100 bill and a note. For your trouble. I laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. They really do think I'm a fool, I said to Malcolm, who looked at me with wide eyes. Mama, what's going on? I handed him the envelope, my voice gentle but firm. It's time you knew the truth, baby. Your daddy set up a trust to protect you, and the Whitakers have been trying to steal it from you since the day you got engaged. I've been working with Mr. Carter to make sure they can't touch a dime. Malcolm's face went pale, anger and relief warring in his eyes. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I squeezed his hand. Because I needed you to see them for who they really are. Now you know. That night, I called Mr. Carter, telling him everything that had happened. We're almost ready, Miss Ruthie, he said. Just a little more evidence, and we'll have them right where we want them. I hung up, feeling the old fire in my belly. The Whitakers thought they could outsmart me, but they were about to learn that a mother's love, and a widow's wisdom, are forces to be reckoned with. As I drifted off to sleep, I whispered a prayer for Malcolm, for myself, and for the justice that was finally within reach. The next morning I woke with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years, the kind that comes from knowing you're finally fighting for what's right. I spent the early hours reviewing every detail of the previous day, replaying the Whitakers' forced smiles and the way Mrs. Whitaker's hand trembled as she pushed those papers toward Malcolm. I called Mr. Carter and told him about the forged signatures and the envelope of hush money. That's exactly what we need, Miss Ruthie, he said, his voice full of quiet satisfaction. Keep everything. We're building a case. I tucked the envelope and the note into a folder with the rest of the evidence, then called Malcolm and asked him to come by after work. When he arrived, I sat him down at the kitchen table, the afternoon sun slanting through the window, and laid out everything I'd gathered. The lawyer's letter, the trust documents, the photos I'd secretly snapped of the Whitakers' bills and foreclosure notices, and the envelope from Mrs. Whitaker. Malcolm's hand shook as he flipped through the papers, his face a storm of anger, betrayal, and disbelief. I can't believe they would do this, Mama. I thought Vanessa loved me. I reached across the table, taking his hand in mine. Sometimes people love what you can give them more than who you are, baby. But you're not alone. We're going to get through this together. He nodded, tears shining in his eyes. What do we do now? I smiled, feeling the old strength rise up in me. We let them think they've won. We play along, gather every scrap of evidence, and when the time is right, we show them who they're really dealing with. That evening I baked a peach cobbler, the scent filling the house with memories of better days, and invited Malcolm to stay for dinner. As we ate, I told him stories about his daddy, how Charles had always planned ahead, how he taught me to play chess so I'd always be thinking 2 moves ahead. That's what we're doing now, Malcolm. We're playing chess, not checkers. He laughed, the sound shaky but real. I'm glad you're on my side, Mama. After he left, I sat on the porch, watching the stars blink to life above the city, and whispered a prayer for wisdom and patience. I knew the Whitakers would try something desperate soon. Their kind always did when they felt the walls closing in. Sure enough, the next day Vanessa showed up at my door, her eyes red and her voice trembling. Mama Ruthie, I need your help. My parents are in trouble, and I don't know what to do. I let her in, offering her a cup of tea, and listened as she poured out her fears, about the bills, the house, the pressure to get Malcolm to sign over his trust. I never wanted to hurt him, but my family, they said it was the only way. I watched her carefully, weighing every word. Vanessa, you have a choice. You can keep lying or you can help us make things right. But you can't do both. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I want to help. I want to be better. I believed her, but I also knew trust would take time to rebuild. As she left, I called Mr. Carter and told him everything. We're almost there, Miss Ruthie. Just a little longer. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in weeks, knowing that the truth was finally on our side, and that the Whitakers' days of scheming were numbered. The next few days passed in a blur of cautious hope and quiet preparation. Vanessa began coming by after work, her face drawn but her eyes clearer than I'd ever seen them. She helped me in the kitchen, peeling potatoes and washing dishes, her hands moving with nervous energy as she confessed more of her family's secrets. Mama Ruthie, my parents are desperate. They've been hiding the foreclosure from everyone, even me, until last month. They thought if they could get Malcolm's trust, they could save the house and pay off their debts. I didn't know how deep it was until I saw the bills myself. I listened, my heart aching for the girl who'd been caught between loyalty and survival, but I kept my voice steady. Vanessa, you have to decide who you want to be. You can't fix your parents' mistakes by making new ones. If you really love Malcolm, you'll help us stop this before it goes any further. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. I want to help. I want to make things right. I hugged her, feeling the old wounds between us begin to close just a little. Meanwhile, Mr. Carter worked quietly in the background, gathering more evidence, tracking the Whitakers' financial moves, and preparing the legal documents we'd need for the final confrontation. Malcolm played his part perfectly, acting oblivious to the Whitakers' schemes, attending family dinners, and pretending to consider their business proposals. Each time he came home, he'd update me on their latest ploys, new documents to sign, new investments to consider, new promises of family unity. I could see the toll it was taking on him, the way his shoulders slumped and his laughter faded, but I reminded him that the end was in sight. Just a little longer, baby. We're almost there. One evening, as we sat together on the porch, Malcolm turned to me, his voice low. Mama, what if they try to hurt you? What if they come after us when they realize they've lost? I squeezed his hand, my own resolve unshaken. Let them try. We have the law, the truth, and each other. That's more than they'll ever have. The next morning, Mrs. Whitaker showed up at my door, her face pinched and her eyes wild. Ruthie, I know you think you're clever, but you're not the only one who can play this game. If you don't convince Malcolm to sign over the trust, I'll make sure everyone knows about your past, about the loan you took out in Charles's name, about the time you almost lost your house. I stared at her, my anger cold and sharp. You go ahead and tell whoever you want, Mrs. Whitaker. I've never hidden my struggles. But you? You've built your whole life on lies, and now they're coming home to roost. She glared at me, but I saw the fear in her eyes. This isn't over, Ruthie. I smiled, my voice calm. No, it's not. But it will be soon. That night, I called Mr. Carter and told him everything. It's time, he said. Let's bring this into the light. As I hung up, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The battle was about to reach its climax, and I was ready. The Whitakers had underestimated me for the last time, and soon everyone would know the truth. The day of reckoning arrived with a sky so blue it almost felt like a blessing. Sunlight pouring through my kitchen window as I brewed a pot of strong coffee and steadied my nerves. Mr. Carter called early, his voice crisp and confident. Today's the day, Miss Ruthie. I'll meet you at the Whitakers' house at noon. Bring everything. I gathered the folder of evidence, every letter, every bill, every note and photo, and tucked it into my purse, my hands steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside me. Malcolm arrived just before we left, his face pale but his eyes burning with resolve. You ready, Mama? I smiled, squeezing his hand. I was born ready, baby. We drove in silence, the city rolling past in a blur, until we pulled up to the Whitakers' house, its grandeur now looking faded and desperate. Vanessa met us at the door, her face drawn but determined. "They're all in the dining room. I told them you wanted to talk about the trust." I nodded, grateful for her courage. Inside, the tension was thick enough to taste. Mrs. Whitaker sat at the head of the table, her lips pressed into a thin line, while Mr. Whitaker fidgeted with a stack of papers. Vanessa's brother hovered by the window, his phone clutched in his hand. Mr. Carter entered, his presence commanding, and took a seat beside me. "Thank you all for coming," I began, my voice calm but ringing with authority. "I think it's time we put all our cards on the table." Mrs. Whitaker tried to interrupt, but Mr. Carter held up a hand. "We have evidence of attempted fraud, forgery, and bribery. We know about the fake prenup, the unpaid bills, and the attempts to access Malcolm's trust. We have recordings, documents, and witness statements." The room went silent, the color draining from Mrs. Whitaker's face. Mr. Whitaker sputtered, "This is outrageous. You can't prove anything." Mr. Carter smiled, sliding the folder across the table. "Actually, we can. And if you contest this, we'll take it to court. You'll lose everything, including your reputation." Vanessa's brother tried to protest, but Vanessa stood, her voice trembling but strong. "It's true, Mama. I saw the bills. I saw the documents. I can't be part of this anymore." Mrs. Whitaker's composure shattered, her voice breaking. "We did it for you, Vanessa. We did it for the family." Vanessa shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "No, you did it for yourselves. And I'm done." Malcolm reached for my hand, his grip strong. "Thank you, Mama, for everything." I smiled, feeling the weight of years lift from my shoulders. "It's over, baby. We're free." Mr. Carter laid out the terms. The Whitakers would sign a statement relinquishing any claim to Malcolm's trust, and in exchange we would not press charges. They agreed, defeated and broken. As we left, Vanessa hugged me, her voice choked with gratitude. "Thank you for giving me a second chance, Mama Ruthie. I won't waste it." I held her close, my heart full of hope and sorrow. The battle was over, but the healing was just beginning. That night, as Malcolm and I sat on the porch, watching the stars blink to life, I whispered a prayer of thanks, for justice, for family, and for the strength to stand tall when it mattered most. The Whitakers had tried to steal everything, but in the end, they'd only revealed the power of a mother's love, and the wisdom of a woman who refused to be underestimated. The days after the confrontation felt like waking up after a long, hard rain. Everything was quieter, but the air was thick with the scent of things newly exposed. Malcolm moved back into his own apartment, but he called me every night, his voice lighter than it had been in months. "Mama, I feel like I can finally breathe again," he told me, and I could hear the relief in every word. Vanessa, true to her promise, started coming by on weekends, helping me in the garden and learning how to cook the recipes her own mother never bothered to teach her. There was a humility in her now, a gentleness that made me believe she truly wanted to change. One Saturday, as we planted tomatoes in the backyard, she turned to me, her eyes shining with tears. "Mama Ruthie, I know I can never undo what my family tried to do, but I want you to know I'm grateful. You saved me from becoming just like them." I hugged her, feeling the old wounds between us begin to heal. "We all make mistakes, baby. What matters is what we do next." Meanwhile, word of what happened at the Whitakers' house spread through the community like wildfire. Some people called to offer support, others just wanted the gossip, but I kept my head high and my answers simple. "The truth always comes out in the end," I'd say, and leave it at that. One afternoon, Mr. Carter stopped by with a thick envelope. "Miss Ruthie, the trust is secure, and Malcolm's assets are protected. The Whitakers have signed everything, and they're moving out of their house next week. I also wanted to let you know that the notary they tried to bribe has been suspended, and the authorities are investigating the rest." Relief washed over me, but I felt a pang of sadness for the Whitakers too. Pride and greed had cost them everything, and I wondered if they'd ever find peace. That evening, Malcolm invited me and Vanessa to dinner at his place. As we sat around his small table, laughing over burnt chicken and lumpy mashed potatoes, I realized that family isn't just about blood or last names. It's about the people who choose to stand by you when the world turns upside down. After dinner, Malcolm handed me a small box. "Open it, Mama." Inside was a silver locket, engraved with the words, "Thank you for believing in me." Tears filled my eyes as I hugged him, my heart full. "You're my son, Malcolm. I'll always believe in you." As Vanessa drove me home, she squeezed my hand. "I want to be better, Mama Ruthie. I want to make you proud." I smiled, feeling hope bloom in my chest. "You already are, baby. Just keep walking forward." That night, as I sat on the porch, the stars bright above me, I whispered a prayer for forgiveness, for healing, and for the strength to keep loving, even when it hurts. The battle was over, but the journey was far from finished. And for the first time in a long while, I was ready for whatever came next. The weeks that followed brought a gentle kind of peace to my life, the kind that comes not from forgetting the past but from finally making sense of it. Vanessa kept her promise, showing up every Saturday morning with a bag of groceries and a notebook full of questions about recipes, gardening, and even budgeting. I watched her transform from a woman who once measured her worth by her family's approval to someone who was learning to stand on her own 2 feet. One afternoon, as we sat on the porch shelling peas, she turned to me, her voice soft but steady. "Mama Ruthie, do you think people can really change? Or are we just pretending until the world stops watching?" I looked at her, seeing the vulnerability in her eyes, and answered honestly, "Change is hard, baby. But it's not about pretending. It's about choosing every day to do better than you did the day before. You're doing that, Vanessa. That's all anyone can ask." She smiled, a real one this time, and I felt a quiet pride settle in my chest. Meanwhile, Malcolm was thriving. He'd started volunteering at a local youth center, teaching kids about financial literacy, and sharing his own story of almost losing everything to people he thought he could trust. "I want to help them avoid the mistakes I made, Mama," he told me one evening as we walked through the park. "I want them to know that it's okay to ask for help, and that sometimes the people who seem the weakest are the ones who save you in the end." His words made me think of Charles, and I whispered a silent thank you to the man who had taught me to play the long game, to never show all my cards at once. The community, too, began to see me differently. Women from church and the neighborhood started coming by, asking for advice on everything from dealing with difficult in-laws to protecting their own assets. I realized that my story, my pain, my patience, my quiet revenge, had become a kind of beacon for others who felt powerless. One Sunday after service, a young woman named Tasha approached me, her hands trembling. "Miss Ruthie, I heard what you did. My husband's family is trying to take my inheritance too. Can you help me?" I took her hands in mine, feeling the weight of her fear, and promised to stand by her. "You're not alone, Tasha. We'll figure it out together." That night, as I sat on the porch with Vanessa and Malcolm, the 3 of us sharing stories and laughter under the stars, I felt a sense of fulfillment I hadn't known in years. The house was no longer just a place to hide from the world. It was a sanctuary, a school, a home for anyone who needed a reminder that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the quiet voice that says, "I will not be moved." As the evening breeze rustled the leaves and the world settled into darkness, I whispered a prayer of gratitude, for second chances, for the family I'd fought to protect, and for the legacy I was finally proud to leave behind. The journey wasn't over, but for the first time, I was excited to see where it would lead. The days grew longer and warmer, and with each sunrise, I felt the heaviness of the past slowly lifting from my shoulders. Vanessa's transformation was a quiet miracle. She started volunteering at the local food pantry, helping women who reminded her of herself not so long ago, and every evening she'd come home with stories of hope and heartbreak, her eyes shining with a new sense of purpose. Malcolm, too, was blossoming, his confidence growing as he mentored young men at the youth center, teaching them not just about money but about trust, resilience, and the importance of listening to your own instincts. Our home became a gathering place for people from all walks of life, women seeking advice, young couples looking for guidance, and neighbors who just wanted to share a meal and a laugh. One Saturday, as we hosted a backyard barbecue, I looked around at the faces, old friends, new allies, even Tasha, who had found the courage to stand up to her own in-laws with my help, and felt a deep, abiding joy. After dinner, as the sun dipped low and the fireflies began to dance, Vanessa pulled me aside, her voice trembling with emotion. "Mama Ruthie, I want to start a support group for women like us. A place where we can share our stories, learn from each other, and make sure no one ever feels as alone as I did." I hugged her, pride swelling in my chest. "That's a beautiful idea, baby. I'll help you every step of the way." The next week, we held our first meeting in the living room, the air thick with nervous anticipation and the scent of fresh-baked cornbread. Women of all ages and backgrounds filled the chairs, their voices tentative at first but growing stronger with each story shared. As I listened, I realized that my journey, my pain, my patience, my quiet victory, had become a lifeline for others. After the meeting, Tasha approached me, tears in her eyes. "You saved me, Miss Ruthie. I don't know how to thank you." I squeezed her hand, my own eyes misty. "You saved yourself, Tasha. I just showed you the way." That night, as I sat on the porch with Malcolm and Vanessa, the three of us wrapped in a quilt and watching the stars, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. The house was alive with laughter and hope, the garden blooming with new life, and my heart was finally at rest. But just as I was drifting off to sleep, my phone buzzed. A message from Mrs. Whitaker, her words hesitant and full of regret. "Ruthie, I'm sorry for everything. I lost myself in fear and pride. I hope you can forgive me." I stared at the screen, my emotions a tangle of anger, sadness, and unexpected compassion. I knew forgiveness wouldn't come easy, but I also knew that holding on to bitterness would only poison the new life I'd built. As I closed my eyes, I whispered a prayer for Mrs. Whitaker, for myself, and for all the women still searching for their own strength. The journey wasn't over, but I was no longer afraid of what lay ahead. I had found my voice, my purpose, and my peace, and I was ready to share it with the world. The following week, the house was alive with the energy of new beginnings. Vanessa's support group had grown so quickly that we had to move the meetings from the living room to the backyard, where folding chairs circled the old oak tree and laughter mingled with the scent of blooming jasmine. Women came from all over the city, some with stories of betrayal and heartbreak, others with tales of quiet triumph, all of them drawn by the promise of a safe place to heal. I watched Vanessa lead the group with a confidence I'd never seen in her before, her voice steady as she encouraged each woman to share her truth. Malcolm, too, found his calling, organizing workshops at the youth center and inviting some of the young men to our home for Sunday dinners. Our table was always full, the air thick with the sound of voices and the warmth of community. One evening, as we cleaned up after a particularly lively gathering, Malcolm handed me a letter. "Mama, this came for you." I opened it, my hands trembling as I recognized the handwriting, Mrs. Whitaker. Her words were humble, almost pleading. "Ruthie, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that losing everything forced me to see what really matters. I'm working at a local shelter now, trying to make amends. Thank you for showing me what true strength looks like." I sat quietly for a moment, letting the words sink in, then folded the letter and placed it in my keepsake box. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about freeing myself from it. That night, as I sat on the porch with Vanessa and Malcolm, the three of us watching the moon rise over the garden, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. Vanessa turned to me, her eyes shining. "Mama Ruthie, I want to start a scholarship fund for women who need a second chance. Will you help me?" I smiled, pride swelling in my chest. "Of course, baby. We'll do it together." The next day, we met with Mr. Carter, who helped us set up the fund in Charles's name. The news spread quickly and soon donations poured in from neighbors, friends, and even strangers who had heard our story. The first recipient was Tasha, who used the money to enroll in nursing school. At the scholarship ceremony, she hugged me tight, tears streaming down her face. "You changed my life, Miss Ruthie. I'll never forget what you did for me." As the weeks passed, the house became a beacon of hope for the community. A place where women found their voices, young men learned to trust, and families discovered the power of forgiveness. One afternoon, as I watered the roses, Vanessa joined me, her hand slipping into mine. "Thank you, Mama Ruthie, for everything." I squeezed her hand, my heart full. "You did the work, baby. I just showed you the way." That night, as I drifted off to sleep, I whispered a prayer of gratitude, for the family I'd fought to protect, for the women I'd helped to heal, and for the legacy I was finally proud to leave behind. The journey wasn't over, but for the first time, I was excited to see where it would lead. And as the stars blinked to life above the house, I knew that our story was far from finished. It was only just beginning. The days rolled on, and with each sunrise, our home became more than just a refuge. It became a symbol of what could happen when women stood together, when secrets were brought into the light, and when forgiveness was chosen over bitterness. Vanessa's support group flourished, drawing women from all walks of life, each one bringing her own story, her own pain, and her own hope. I watched as friendships blossomed, as laughter returned to faces that had forgotten how to smile, and as women who once felt powerless began to find their voices. Malcolm's youth workshops grew too, and soon our backyard was filled with the sound of boys learning to cook, to budget, and to talk about their feelings without shame. One Saturday, as we hosted a community picnic, I looked around at the crowd. Tasha, now in her nursing uniform, helping an elderly neighbor. Mrs. Whitaker, quietly serving lemonade and sharing her own story of redemption. Vanessa, standing tall at the center of her circle, her eyes bright with purpose. And Malcolm, laughing with a group of young men who had once been on the edge of trouble, but now spoke of college and careers. My heart swelled with pride and gratitude. After the picnic, Vanessa pulled me aside, her voice trembling with emotion. "Mama Ruthie, I never thought I'd have a family like this. You gave me a second chance, and I want to make sure every woman who walks through our door knows she's worthy of one too." I hugged her, tears stinging my eyes. "You're not just my daughter-in-law, Vanessa. You're my daughter in every way that matters." That night, as the house quieted and the last of the dishes were washed, I sat on the porch with Malcolm, the two of us wrapped in a quilt, watching the fireflies dance in the warm summer air. "Mama, do you ever regret any of it?" he asked softly. I thought for a long moment, then shook my head. "No, baby. Every trial, every heartbreak, every moment of doubt brought us here. And here is exactly where we're meant to be." He smiled, his eyes shining with love. "I'm proud to be your son." As the stars blinked to life above us, I whispered a prayer of thanks, for the family I'd fought to protect, for the women I'd helped to heal, and for the legacy I was finally proud to leave behind. The journey wasn't over, but I knew that whatever came next, we would face it together, with open hearts and unbreakable spirits. And as I drifted off to sleep, I felt Charles's presence beside me, a gentle reminder that love, once planted, can bloom again and again, no matter how many storms it must weather. The morning of my 71st birthday dawned with a gentle breeze and the golden light of a new season streaming through the windows, casting soft patterns on the polished wood floors of the home I had fought so hard to protect. I woke to the sound of Vanessa and Malcolm in the kitchen, their laughter mingling with the aroma of fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls, and for a moment, I let myself simply breathe in the peace that had finally settled over our lives. When I stepped into the kitchen, Vanessa greeted me with a bouquet of wildflowers from the garden, and a smile that was all warmth and no shadows. "Happy birthday, Mama Ruthie," she said, her voice steady and sure. "This year we celebrate you." The table was set with my favorite breakfast, And as we ate, neighbors and friends began to arrive, each carrying a dish or a bouquet, their laughter filling the house with the music of community. Tasha was among the first to arrive, her face glowing with happiness as she hugged me tight. "Thank you for everything, Miss Ruthie. You gave me a second chance at family." I squeezed her hand, my heart full. "You gave yourself that chance, Tasha. I just opened the door." After breakfast, we gathered in the sunroom, where Malcolm presented me with a small, wrapped box. Inside was a silver locket, engraved with the words, "Home is where forgiveness lives." I pressed it to my heart, overwhelmed by the journey we'd taken to get here. Later, as the afternoon sun warmed the garden, Vanessa and I walked among the roses, talking about the future. "I want to keep the house open, Mama Ruthie," she said. "For book clubs, for women who need a place to heal, for anyone who needs to know they're not alone." I nodded, pride swelling in my chest. "That's exactly what your father and I dreamed of, Vanessa. A home that gives back." As the day faded into evening, we hosted a garden party, lanterns glowing in the trees, the air alive with laughter and the promise of new beginnings. Mrs. Whitaker, now a regular at our gatherings, pulled me aside, her voice soft. "You've built something beautiful here, Ruthie. Your story has given hope to so many." I smiled, my heart full. "It's not just my story, it's all of ours. It's proof that no matter how deep the hurt, love and forgiveness can always find a way." As the stars blinked to life above the house, I sat on the porch, Vanessa and Malcolm by my side, and whispered a prayer of thanks, for the strength to endure, for the courage to forgive, and for the family and community that had become my greatest treasures. This is my true story. My name is Miss Ruthie Bell, and if you've ever felt betrayed, lost, or alone, I hope you know that healing is possible, that second chances are real, and that you are never too old to reclaim your peace. Thank you for listening to my journey. If it touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a little hope tonight. And remember, no matter how dark the night, the dawn always comes. Sometimes the world will look at you and see only what you let them see. They might call you poor, naive, or powerless, but if my story has taught me anything, it's that true strength is quiet, patient, and always watching. I learned that you don't have to shout to be heard, and you don't have to fight dirty to win. Sometimes the best revenge is living with dignity, loving with an open heart, and never letting anyone steal your peace. If you were in my shoes, would you have played along? Or would you have confronted them from the start? Have you ever been underestimated only to prove everyone wrong in the end? I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. Maybe your words will help another woman find her courage too. Thank you for listening to my journey. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a little hope tonight. And remember, no matter how dark it gets, the dawn always comes. Take care of yourself and take care of each other. Until next time, this is Miss Ruthie Bell.